In this video, we're going to take a look at teacher grading tools. These are features that enable you to have more direct control over the grading and scoring process. Let's start with looking at rubrics. You can assign a rubric to writing and oral assignments to change how the student's responses will be graded. You can either choose from one of the presets or you can create your own rubric. When creating a new rubric, you can generate it using AI or you can enter it in manually by filling in these categories here. And you have three different rubric types you can choose from: holistic, boundary based, where students are scored with different point bands based on how they perform, as well as complex, where those point bands are associated with specific categories and change between different categories. So let's try generating a rubric here. Let's generate uh, a rubric. So now we see here, when I asked it to generate a rubric that was more focused on content accuracy over things like vocabulary and grammar, it created a rubric that's most heavily focused on content and clarity rather than specific language control. Now we just have to name the rubric, and then we can save it and apply it. So now we see here, this rubric has been applied to this assignment. You can also assign it to different assignments as well. So as I mentioned earlier, you can also apply custom rubrics to oral assignments. So on the assignment page, you can see the rubric over here. And then if you want to switch the rubric, you can just switch it to a different one. You can also open it in the rubric builder over here for an enlarged editor here where you can edit rubrics and also create your own ones. When we apply a custom rubric here, like for example, this IB writing rubric, and then we go and look at a submission, we can see that the student has been graded with this specific rubric. So we see here the specific IB writing categories are what the student is graded against and is what they can see their markup for. Both you and the student can also view the full rubric here and can see exactly which mark bands they scored in to see exactly how they scored against the rubric. And over on Performance Insights, we can see the category analysis for the specific categories of that rubric. The next teacher grading tool is grading curves. This allows you to scale student scores based on a specific curve you choose so they are better suited for your gradebook. That way, students aren't overly penalized for lower scores, especially for more difficult assignments. To apply a curve, you just click this button here, and you can choose from curves you've already created or create your own new one. So when you're creating a curve, you have three choices you can choose from. Linear additive, which just adds a certain percent to the student's score. And you can also enable whether you want it to overflow extra credit, where it's possible for students to receive over 100% due to the curve. Square root, where lower scores are boosted more than higher ones, according to this formula. And boundary, where certain boundary ranges of student scores translate into specific values. For example, if students did very poorly on this assignment, I can say anywhere from 60 to 100% gets 100%. Anywhere from 40 to 60 gets a 90%. And anywhere from 0 to 40 gets like a 75%. And then let me name the curve. Um, and then apply it. So now that this curve is applied, you can see here that the scores have been converted into curved scores. And then this is a score that you can then export to Canvas and to your gradebook. You can also choose whether you want it to display for students or not. So if they're able to see their scores, their curved scores in Lingua itself. And you can see here, it's over here. And you can also change the curve or remove the curve if you need to. There are also these class stats over here and a distribution to help you determine which curve to use and understand how your students performed on this assignment. One more thing I want to mention is that on all assignment submissions, you have the ability to change student grades and add graders' notes. So if you think a student was graded wrong, you can change their grade. You can also add a grader's note. For example, um, and then you can save it. So the student's grade will be updated and they'll see the grader note that you added. And the last grading tool I'll be going over in this video is grading approach. So for writing and oral assignments, when a rubric will be used in the grading, you can specify a specific grading approach, which is how lenient or strict the AI will grade the submissions based on the rubric. So even though you have a rubric here, you can choose whether you want it to be overall graded slightly more leniently or as usual or slightly more strictly. This lets you have a little bit more control over over the grading process in addition to the rubric itself. So that wraps it up for this video. Thank you for watching.